friends and families around the world. Welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. As always, I'm joined by Christie Burns and Mike Benelli. I'm Lee Elias. Today's topic is a good one. We're talking about hockey parents today. As many of you know, if you're listening to this after it comes out, we just passed Father's Day, and the team and I were talking about great hockey parents. It doesn't have to just be hockey moms or hockey dads, but great hockey parents. And it made us want to do an episode. We realized that in the hockey community, a lot of times we end up commiserating about the things we don't love in the hockey world, but what we don't spend enough time on is the great things that happen in the hockey world, the great people, the great communities, the great things that happen with parents. And again, we all know stories from the hockey world that revolve around that, but you know what? We wanted to create an open forum. We wanted to discuss it and really start promoting it in a positive way. You know, guys, one of the things I think about sometimes with social media is it just seems like one great competition or one great highlight reel, and we don't spend enough time really sharing maybe those inspirational stories or those inspirational people that can really brighten someone's day. So we hope that if you're watching this on your news feed or if you're listening to a podcast, that this is going to brighten your day, especially if you're in the hockey community. So what we're going to do today, each one of us is going to move through and tell a story about a great hockey parent that can be a coach that we've met or have been with or experienced time with during our time on our hockey journey. Now we have to give this little disclaimer. Each one of us committed to not use our own parents. So I'll preface this now that we all love our parents. If our parents are happy to be listening to this, we love you very much. We thank you. But this episode, unfortunately, we're going to move beyond you and talk about some of the other people in the hockey world. So who would like to go first? I know this is an exciting topic. I'm looking at you, Christy. I'm looking at you, Mike. Whoever says they want to go first is going to go first.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike was pointing at you, and then Christy threw the ball back, and here we go. Go ahead.
Well, I just, listen, I think it's just, it's one of those things I've been thinking about, and, it is hard, right? Because, when you go through, being a player with great parents, when you go through being a coach that has great parent support, and then you go through being a parent of a player, and you see all the great parent supports around you, it right. Really, fortunately and unfortunately, in my world, all these parents meld into like one person, like the good, and I try to find that good piece of the parenting part, right? That helps with the hockey, because you see the Facebook posts of the tournament weekend, and then all of a sudden you don't see any Facebook posts unless they win. Like, so you say, hey, we're made it to the final, we can't wait, we're one step away, and then you're like, what happened? It must have lost because I didn't see it. So I think but it's funny how, there are great parents that are supportive and probably don't get the accolades in this social media world.
Mike, I'll cut you off there too. I want to let you guys know that I should have said this in the open, that, there are so many people we could pick, right? So it's almost unfair to make us all pick just one, but what we'll do is we'll make this an anthology series within the podcast, and we'll do episodes like this every so often, so we can kind of tap on as many people as possible, because I do understand I'm probably putting you specifically, Mike, in a position where you got to pick someone and you might run into well, what about me?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to give any names, but certainly I think one of the best parents that I've experienced over the last few years is really been more of a youth hockey coach in a position where, the parent went above and beyond, any kind of title or any kind of need to be, the manager or the scheduler and like that. And just somebody, this particular person was just a generally positive, influential person with the rest of the group. I mean, there's that one parent, and I had this, that really helped sway what happened in the benches or on in the stands, and and had that way about her of also reminding the other parents, although she was serious, like and she used to give this line, like, and I loved it because she's like, well, who says it's okay to lose? Losers, but we're winners, we want to win. But she was really great at being, funny and connecting with the parents, and did a great job of keeping everybody really grounded. I think we all need that in the youth hockey world, and just little things like name plates for the kids, and, being conscious of the end of the year gifts, not just for the head coach, but for all the other people that helped. And like somebody like me, who at the end of the year will go through the rigmarole of just trying to get the season ending on a positive note, she was really good at reminding everyone else about all the great, the things that happened all the way from, from September and October that we often forget about, right? I mean, everything, it seems like a lot of the hockey season really is reflected on the last 2 weeks, and that's wrong. Because it's a great journey. And I think that's the kind of parent that I think stands out for me,
Right.
is that youth hockey parent that, keeps you grounded as a youth hockey coach, and also keeps that support around you and helps you, get the other parents on your side, because, and I don't think she didn't even have the best player on the team. It wasn't like sometimes you have, a lot of people follow the one parent just because they have the kid's the best player on the team, which doesn't necessarily make them a great parent, a great part of the team. But she was great. And I think we need more people like that aren't, that unsung hero, I guess, is in every season you have that.
Right.
But I think in this particular instance, that was a really, strong person for me to have around that. So I think it was 2 years. So it was great.
Yeah. And I also have to give a shout out to hockey grandparents too. I've met some amazing hockey grandparents throughout our youth hockey years, to the point where, I mean, there was this couple that never missed a game. It didn't matter how far away we were. It could have been way up north in Watertown or in the southern tier, wherever that game was, they were in the stands. And part of that was, and they were so busy as parents when their son played hockey, they didn't really get a chance to experience being a hockey parent full time. And they regretted missing out. And here was their second chance. And they were taking in the grandkids, bringing the banners, wearing all the team colors. And it was just so wonderful to see that, and to have that connection with the kids. So many kids don't have that relationship with the grandparents. I just love to see that. So I do have to give a shout out to all the hockey grandparents out there. Thank you. We love your support. We've had a lot of great hockey parents who, as you alluded to, Mike, they kind of are the glue that holds the team. They work behind the scenes. They're not looking for any recognition. And all those little things that they do make such a huge difference. This one hockey mom made a gourmet lunch for all the hockey moms, out in the parking lot. We opened up, we tailgated, and she made sure that every single one of us just got treated to something special during when we're, got our kids from one ring to the other and we have no time to eat. And all those little things, like putting signs on the kids' locker room doors to make them each feel like stars, or the hotel room doors, just all those fun little things that just make the season special and memorable for the kids and parents. So we're lucky that we've had a lot of really good parents along the way, very supportive. And I think that's the thing about hockey, because it is such a huge commitment. A lot of people think of us as crazy, nuts, insane. And maybe that's somewhat true, but because I think we spend so much time, we have such a huge investment in the sport and our kids, we take the time to make it special for not just ourselves, but for the whole hockey community or hockey family.
It is a community, isn't it? As you just said, one of the things I think about too, going back to what you said, Mike, I remember at the end of this past season, the hockey parents got together. They gave the coaches, which I was one of them, just little gifts. I remember they gave me this coach that said, they gave me this glass that said Coach Lee on it. And, just so the parents out there know, coaches really do appreciate the end of the year gifts, probably more than we let on. I mean, I'm sure you get oh, thank you so much. But it really does mean something to have that recognition at the end of the season. And I'll tell you what, I use that Coach Lee glass more often than I'd care to admit, because it's a cool reminder of what we've done. And this is at every level I've coached, even when I coach college, where I tell the parents pretty point blank that I'm happy to have a conversation, but not regarding your child on the hockey team, right? They're adults now, they're in college. I don't report to the parents. I mean that with no disrespect. But even after those seasons, I would get gifts from the parents for just, helping with their children through, their young men through college. So to all the parents out there that organize that, this is a big shout out to you, obviously, because that's a big deal. And then Christy, as you said, it is a fraternity sorority, however you want to look at it. The hockey clan is a little different than the other clans of parents with other sports. And I have no problem saying that. The dedication, the money, the time, the sacrifice, all of that goes into creating, you know what it is? It is the consummate, it takes a village, right? It takes a village to raise a kid, or much less a team. I'm going to be very specific with a person for this episode, because I realized that I don't think I've ever actually spoke about this person publicly, and he had a major impact on my life, much less my hockey career. And I will preface this again. There's many people I could mention, and I will in other episodes, but this would be the starting place for me. I want to take you guys back to 1997 when I was a peewee, right? So you guys can do the math on that one. It's my first year playing hockey. I started very late. And all I'll tell you is I could skate like the wind, but I had no other skills. That was my gift, was I could skate, but I hadn't developed anything. And after my first season, I went to go try out for a spring league. And I remember being very nervous. And I'll never forget, I made a team called the Red Team. They were colored jerseys, right? And I made it the Red Team. And the head coach of that team, his name was John Colonna. All right. And I'll never forget, he came up to me right after this tryout, because I didn't have a ton of confidence at this time in hockey. I mean, I was playing it. I was kind of doing it, but it wasn't my life yet. And I remember he came up to me after the tryout and he said to me, "I can't believe nobody took you first." He goes, "You were still on the table when they came to me and I jumped at you." That was the first time. There's a bigger story here. That was the first time in my life anybody ever said anything like that to me in my life, much less hockey, right? That I can't believe nobody picked you. You were obviously the person to pick. And I'll never forget this. Throughout that season, man, he built me up. He put me in a position to succeed every game. He built so much confidence in me, or put so much confidence in me. I started scoring like crazy for the first time in my life. And it was that summer, or that spring, that I, for the first time, remember feeling, man, I want to do this forever. It was the first time I ever felt that, right? It would not have been possible without him. Okay, now the story grows and grows, because it's not just about him as a dad. I don't think he actually knew that much about the game. It's not a shot. I mean, he just, I don't think that was his thing. He was just a hockey dad that coached. But what I remember about John Colonna, outside his son Vincent, who was the goalie on the team that I played on, who I'll send this to, was he was the most giving person I think I've ever met in my life. Every summer, this guy would invite us over to his house, which was almost a ranch, right? Like just huge open space. And he would put on this kind of like 4th of July type party. There would be a full, like, roasted pig. I mean, this was a massive, massive party. I don't remember him ever asking for money for it. My parents might tell me differently if I asked, but this is what I remember about these parties, right? All his teams were there. All his kids' teams were there. We're all together. We just had a blast. And he put on, I still don't know how he did this, the greatest and biggest 4th of July fireworks spectacular I've ever seen, ever. And I'm talking, I've been to like town ones. I've seen the ones on TV in Washington. I've never for my life seen anything this grand and been in person. We would just sit in his yard and look up, and he'd launch these fireworks. It was magical. The reason why this is so impactful on me is because I was in high school when this was happening. I got to say this, 9/11 happened during this time. And I remember that summer, there was a big light up wheel that said, "Let's roll," which, for those of you who don't know, that's what one of the members on Flight 93 said before heroically taking that plane down. And I remember after 9/11, that being the first time I felt anything outside being scared from 9/11. And this guy, throughout my entire high school career, just believed in me. He made me a captain of one of his teams. If he doesn't pick me to be on his team and really make me feel confident, I'm not sitting here today. He tragically passed away a few years ago. He was a great man. And I remember the last time I spoke to him, and this says a lot about who he was as a person. I called him probably around 2006, 2005, 2006, sometime in that time period, because I got a minor league tryout. And I hadn't spoken to him in years. And I called him and I said, "Hey, John, listen, I got this minor league tryout. I don't know if I'm going to make the team or not. It really doesn't matter." I remember saying that to him, but I want you to know that I wouldn't have been here without you. Like, you're a major reason that I'm here. I called every coach that day that I thought had a major impact on my career. And I remember I'll never forget what he said. He said, "I didn't do anything. You did this yourself," which is, again, that's just how humble he was. Right. But I'll never forget that he just kept pushing, like, "You did it, Lee. You love the game." And I just wanted him to know that, look, you put me in a position to succeed when nobody else did. Nobody wanted a 12-year-old who had never played hockey before. They didn't want the hassle of having to teach him stick handling, puck handling, shooting. And I said, most of all, you made me believe I could do it. And that's the key with this guy, John Colonna. That's the key with this guy. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to make me believe. I don't even think he knew he was doing that, to be honest with you, but he did. And he put me on this pathway that I'm sitting here today. I have the hockey businesses. I've dedicated my life to the game in a lot of ways. That doesn't happen without him. And I'll tell you what else the impact was, and then I'll be quiet. He was so humble and so giving without thought that had such an impact to me. I remember thinking at one point when I was younger, man, I hope I can give back like this one day. When I was really young, I was a teenager, right? That was the impact he had. And I do that now. I try and give back as much as I can. And I'm telling you, that all spawned from his givingness. Those 4th of July spectaculars, I call them. I still to this day have never seen fireworks as good as this guy would put on. And it must have cost him a fortune, but he did it every year for us. It was a pleasure to be on the bench with him. He just made you feel good. Right. And I'm so lucky. I'm so fortunate, aside from being blessed with great parents, that this man came into my life. I was such an impressionable tongue twister age for him to come into my life and to teach me that. And it's really impacted me to this day. And that's the type of person that I want to celebrate with this episode, because, he didn't have to do it. And I guarantee he didn't know how big of an impact he had. And I think that's the point, right? You never know what kind of impact you're going to have on someone just by giving them a chance, or telling them you did a great job today, or putting on a 4th of July spectacular and inviting them, making them part of the community, feel wanted. So John Colonna, this one's for you. This episode, at least for me, is dedicated to you. God rest his soul. He's got 3 beautiful children who are all grown up now. Right. And, without him in my life, I'm not sitting here. I had to shout him out. And again, in another episode, I got other people like this too, but he started it for me. I'll never forget that summer, him picking me up on that spring league and making me believe I could do something in this game. And that's where it starts. It was a long story, and I appreciate you both listening to it.
That's a beautiful story.
Thank
How do you top that? Mike, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think it really goes to the heart of a lot of the reasons why we're all together now. I mean, that you find people in your life as you develop in, just in this hockey piece, that motivate you and inspire you, and you draw from them, right? You draw you find out, like, later on, like, my God, that guy used to give up like 26 weeks of his life for me. Right. Like, what the heck was he thinking? Or when you do it, and I try to reflect on that too when I'm coaching and I'm having opportunity, to influence and give back to players, that I've got to have high energy, and I've got to be, in an inspirational, draw for that kid, because just as easy as it was for somebody to turn Lee on to hockey, it could have been just as easy to turn you off.
Right.
And I think it's just, I think that's why, when we're all here and for me in particular, in an episode like this, would be really difficult for me to name the 18 people I could list today, right? That each piece of them made an impact on me, whether to give me a leadership position, or to kick me in the butt a little bit, or to, give me lunch money, when I didn't have any, and I'm like, oh geez, everybody else is kind of here and I'm not in that situation. So all those little pieces that inspire you along the way, it just happens to me. It was a lot of hockey, because that's what I was involved in. But I think it's, but for all of us, as parents of youth players, what you're talking about, Lee, and that those little impacts you can make along the way, really in the youth sports too, happens more from the volunteer dad and mom than it certainly does from the professional hockey coach. And I think that's a great, takeaway for all of us that are involved with youth hockey at the minor level and the volunteer level.
What building on that, Mike, one of the things that, again, I've had multiple coaches teach me, but the thing with John was that, we can all get lost sometimes in how transactional things are, right? I coach you, so you give me this, or, I bring you, so you give me this. And I was always astonished. And again, this is through the eyes of a child. I don't know if he asked people for money or not. It's not the point. He was just so giving. I just can't believe how giving. I remember thinking, like, how is he doing all this for us? Right? Why is he doing all this for us?
Right.
And that had such an impression on me. It made such an impression on me. And I remember thinking that of just, it's not transactional for him. He just wants us to have a good time and be good people. I mean, look, this wasn't like a free for all. All right. I mean, there were life lessons there. I remember one time I was playing against one of his teams, and I'll just say I got a little salty with one of the players. And I remember from his bench, he goes, Lee, what are you doing? Like, he's not my coach at this point. I remember I had to go up there after the game. I was like, look, I would never do anything to one of your players. He's like, that's not you. He goes, that's not like you to do that. He's coaching me. I'm playing against him. Right. I think I scored a bunch of goals in that game too. By the way, side note on that, I remember he used to let us name the teams we were on. The red team was the red team. The next year we called the Yakahooties. I'll never forget the Yakahooties, and had a Tasmanian devil on the jersey. And I think it was the Solar Bears. He would let us do whatever we wanted with that. He's like, yeah, whatever you want to name the team. But he didn't make it transactional. Listen, I don't know how it is around the country. I'm sure different places are different. In the Northeast, everything's very give and take, right? Sometimes it's even more take than give. And he just broke that down of like, it doesn't have to be like that. I'm happy to give you this. Just give me your best effort, have a good time, and be a kid. And I don't know the motivation behind it. I know he had the means to do it, but it was the choice to do it. He didn't have to do any of this stuff for us. And he did every single year, every single game. And the point I'm trying to make is this. That was impressed upon me. Now I try and do that for the people that work for me. I try and do that for the people I coach, or even the people I run into. You just never know what someone's going through in their day. And at that time in my life, especially when I was like 12, 13, I was not a confident person at that time in my life. Really, I was in a transitional period. I would actually describe myself as someone unconfident, right? And guys, I can't stress this enough. I remember the moment hockey clicked for me, because it changed my life forever. For the first time in my life, I believed I was good at something, right? And I probably wasn't. That's the funny part. He just saw potential, right? And he helped me get there. So just going back to your point, Mike, yeah, it's not always about the transactional of, we get lost in this. Like, well, I'm not doing anything for that person because they didn't do anything for me. And don't get me wrong. Like, if someone's a jerk or an a-hole, you don't have to go out of your way. All right. But, when you see a little kid or you see a parent that's really struggling, just go tell them something nice, man. You go out of your way for that person. You never know what you're going to do for them. We all need to hear that, especially right now, right? We've all been locked up for 15 months in the most turbulent hockey season of all time, but in the NHL all the way down to Adams, right? This is where the hockey community should shine, right, Christie? Like, this is where people get to come back together and start moving forward as a group and really starting to enjoy being part of a team again.
Yeah. And I hope coaches keep that in mind, the great responsibility that they have, and just those little things that you can do that can make such a big difference in a kid's life, because they may not have anyone else in their life telling them that they're good at something,
right.
or to try, or to keep trying. And if they're putting in the work, you need to recognize that. Such great reminders as we're starting to get back together. There are a lot of hockey clinics now finally happening again this summer. So coaches, you're going to have that opportunity to start influencing kids again. So keep that in mind, what Lee said. What you can do for a kid, you can just spark that little fire that's burning in them that just needs to be flamed a little bit. Here's your opportunity to do that and give back in ways that you may not even realize it. But they'll always remember that and carry that with them, as we just heard Lee say. That's amazing. The other thing I wanted to just talk about, the hockey community and our uniqueness and our ability to come together as a group. And what I love about being a member of the hockey community is when one of us fall, we all fall, and we all lift each other back up. Had a recent experience with that. There's the youth hockey team reached out to me. The Syracuse Blazers hockey team reached out to me as a news reporter because they knew I'm also a hockey mom. So they thought maybe I would have interest in this story. One of their coaches, Remy Babineau, was suffering a kidney disease, a rare hereditary kidney disease. And he was about to go on dialysis, which, as you know, carries a heavy toll. And if he didn't get a transplant soon, he didn't know how much longer he would have. And his one wish was just to watch his kids grow up. That's all he wants in life. So I did the piece on him. I shared it with our viewers in Syracuse, and it spread. I mean, it went viral, it went all over the place. And and he kept coaching, even as sick as he was. He's got 3 kids, a wife, beautiful wife at home. He still wanted to give back, even though he didn't really have much strength in him to do it. He still found enough to keep getting on that ice. Maybe he wouldn't be on the ice, he'd be off to the side coaching the kids, still wanted to give back to the kids. And the great news here is the story spread enough, it was so widely spread that he found a donor. He had the transplant and he's making a comeback. So that's just a true testament to our hockey community. We pull together. So while I'm not recognizing just one individual right now, I just want to recognize all of you
That's
guys.
okay. That's okay.
It's wonderful. And, keep doing that. Keep looking out for each other. It's just so unique. And it's just a beautiful thing. So thank you.
That is a beautiful story, Christie. And you're making a wonderful point too that I want to bring up, is that it seems like, especially the last maybe 5-6 years, that it's just everything has been so negative, just so negative, online, in network news. I love local news because local news actually can still report on good things happening, as you just proved. There are so many good, positive stories out there in the hockey community, but beyond, right? But we have to look for them, right? And like, that's one of the in my opinion, one of the upsetting things about this time is there's so many of them, we don't report them enough. This show is going to report them. This show that we're doing together, we're going to share the good stories. We go over the bad too, so we can learn from them. But one of the things that we're committed to here is sharing these great stories. That's an incredibly inspiring story that you just shared, and that they came to you and you were able to do that, and you saw what happened. It went viral. There's a lot of positivity in the world. There is balance, believe it or not. Right now we have to look for it. I am looking forward to a time when, as a species, I guess, we can find those better stories and share those too. It doesn't always have to be fear and dark and the bad things. One of my favorite ones that I'm going to talk about a lot on my own channels is the fact that, we're beating this pandemic now, finally, right? And millions have perished, but we're beating it. That's something we should collectively feel good about, not just as Americans, but as a world, right? As we're finding a way through this together. The hockey community is like that. It's always been like that. One last note for me before I jump into final words on what will be a shorter episode, which is okay, is, and Christie, you actually made me think about this with these inspirational people in our lives. And this is really more for the coaches out there, or even the parents, I guess, is that, so often we forget that our experience is not the communal experience. We all have these very individual experiences growing up and being parents. And, I remember how sobering it was when my father, I had a really good family life. I had great parents, but he reminded me one time when I was probably late teens, early 20s, that, look, not every kid comes home and it's wonderful. A lot of kids go home and it's not a great place to be, that hockey or school is actually their safe place. I had never looked at it like that. Right. So for those hockey parents out there, again, I'm not saying you need to raise anybody else's kid. That's completely up to you if you want to do something like that. But you got to remember that not every kid, not every person is having the same experience that you are. Hockey might be their safe place. Are you keeping it that kind of environment for them? Or are you creating an even better environment? Again, I had a great home life, but John Colonna created an amazing place for hockey for me, that I found a home outside of my home for the first time in my life. I was 12, 13 years old. So you can create that. And my attitude is, don't force it, but always be, this is how I look at it for myself. I always want to be the person that's in a position to give that to somebody who wants it or deserves it. Right? Not everybody, I don't want to say deserves it, but not everybody's in a position to receive that. That's what I'll say. Right? But I always want to be that person. He taught me that. Right? Always be that person that's there if someone needs it. It doesn't have to be transactional. You don't owe me anything just to feel good about yourself for an hour, a year, a month, life, whatever. Right? That's one of the things I want to impress. That's really what makes a great hockey dad or mom, right? Or person. Getting lots of smiles here. I might be talking too much this episode.
No, I think no, you're
truth. That's all I
think I think I just think it's easy to jump on board with that kind of stuff and understand that. Yeah, I think, but in hockey, I mean, from my point of view, and I think being able to see this from a national level and be involved with so many different programs in so many different communities, I think we forget too that the one thing that's Christie alluded to earlier, about being crazy in the hockey world, is that we forget all this stuff that we do. We have no idea, you forget that it's right. That all the stuff we're doing, not everybody can do it as easy. You're like, hey, let's go to a tournament in Rhode Island next weekend. All right, well, that's $1,000. and a family has to determine, can I do that? And what am I giving up? Like some families, they don't care. It's like, oh yeah, that's no problem. That's great. That's a night out. But to other families, it's right, their whole budget for the year. And I think in hockey, you see that more and more, because hockey's not, in our region, especially in the Northeast, it's not communal. It's not like kids all in this, it's not soccer where everybody on that team is in the same socioeconomic place. It's such a different sport. I think we have to be aware of that as we look at these things, that, just because you're a great hockey player and you make a team, that's just the start of the expense. Like, oh, great, I made the team. So, this is great. My kid's on the super team. Now what do I do?
Yeah, right.
Right. And I think it's just, so I think it's important for all of us to remember that, if you have the means and you have the ability, to make sure you look before you just say, hey, because I see it all the time with parents, like after a game, if they win, everybody's pumped up, they're happy. Hey, let's all go to wherever, right? Top golf, or, well, that's expensive. Like, and is that in somebody's budget to do that on the weekend? Somehow these parents make it work. They do it, but you don't want to be that. You don't want to allow that. It's just so hard to forget about that. Maybe there's a couple of families that can't do that, and that really is a huge decision to do that kind of stuff. I don't know. Not that I don't want to be positive, because I do.
You're making a great point.
What great parents do, and what great coaches do, and what great organizations do, they find a way to communalize all that and make it so they understand and recognize all the different people on your team, and how do I associate and create experiences that benefit the group, as opposed to that one individual parent that's all gung-ho that says, hey, yeah, we're all going to go to the pro hockey game tonight because we're in town. Well, can we all do that?
Right.
And I think we forget that not everybody can.
Right. That's really important to keep in mind. And I've been very fortunate to be on very hockey friendly budget hockey teams where, we were on all different levels. I mean, some parents couldn't afford to do, and we'd always try to make it so that everyone was included before we decided if we're doing an out of town trip, what can everybody afford? What's within everyone's budget? And if we had parents that couldn't do that, then we find something else. Okay, we're just going to be out in the parking lot. We're going to shoot some pucks and sticks, or we'll do something at the hotel. We'll have a game night at the hotel so that everybody can be together, and we'll all do a potluck supper instead of going out to a fancy restaurant.
Right. And I think that was my point earlier, that, I've been fortunate to have those parents that recognize what other parents don't have.
Right.
Like, they're the ones that say, whoa, let's do a survey. Let me figure out who can do what.
Right.
And not embarrass anybody, but also include everyone. And then, and to Lee, and your point too, what happens too in a lot of these situations is you find the parents that say, I know so-and-so, I'll pay for that. Like, don't tell anyone. To your coach, Lee, right. How many people could put on a multi-$1,000 fireworks show? and be, and be included. Maybe you got to find out from your parents what they had to pay, but but if they didn't, he did that as an own. But
Like, I can tell you this, Mike, even if they did have to pay something, this thing,
right.
this thing was
It was incredible. But I mean, but I think the effort, like
Yeah.
to your point, is he included everyone in.
everyone.
And really, it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like to me he's the guy to be collecting at the door,
He
right?
wasn't.
So
He wasn't.
yeah, and I think that's important. I mean, that you obviously have a great, had a great experience for yourself, but obviously because you're close to those guys that were on that team, they had a great experience too. And I think,
Right.
it didn't just make you stand out. It's funny if you probably talk to everyone on that team, they probably all had very similar experiences without you knowing it.
Right. I was just going to say that, I'm probably not the only person whose life he inspired, and he never asked for anything in return, except, as you say, except hard work. Right.
Right.
And I think the theme here, guys, and this is why I love episodes like this, because we come to like funny conclusions that we didn't intend to, is that all the people that we're talking about, there seems to be a level of selflessness and a level of consciousness, a consciousness that it's not about them and that they have to keep other people in mind. When I think about all the great influencers in my life, whether it's hockey parents or not, there's a level of consciousness beyond their own experience that they were able to kind of look at someone and say, this person's different than me. Let me think about what they might be going through. And again, it's not so much that they sacrificed themselves for other people. I don't think that that's what ever happened. It was just they were giving of what they could give, and they made a decision to do it. Right? They didn't go to a point that it was hurting them, but they were conscious of, wow, hey, Lee's low confidence. Right? I mean, I'm telling you right now, I actually know this. There were plenty of people who looked at me at that time and said, "Oh, I don't want to deal with that kid." I was really hyper. I was very emotional at that time in my life. I couldn't control my feelings a lot of the time. That's who I was as a kid. I got no problem admitting that. He looked past all of that and he saw the potential, right? This is what we're talking about. He just kind of took the time to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to invest in him because he deserves it. He's working hard." He saw that. It wasn't just an annoying, zitty-faced teenager, which I was. So I think that's the theme of this episode, right? Is like the level of selflessness to be able to put yourself outside your own mind, your own economic situation, your own BS, right? That's another one. And just say everyone's got their own journey. Robin Williams, guys, has this great quote. Another guy to God rest his soul. He said famously, and I lean on this, you never know what someone's going through. When you're in traffic and someone's going mad behind you, honking the horn, giving you the middle finger, as annoying as that is, and we get plenty of that in the Northeast, right? You don't know what's going on in that person's day. They might be having the worst day of their life, and I just kind of keep that in mind when anything like that happens. And I just kind of go, you know what, peace be with you, in most situations, as long as they don't put me in danger. But, my point is like, we get so egotistic about things like that. And it's like, I see somebody angry and stuff like that. I really just wish them the best. I'm sorry, whatever's happening to you. Maybe you are just an a-hole, but it doesn't matter, right? I just wish you the best. And I think great hockey parents, hockey people do that. It's not really about them, right? It's about the team. It's about the community. And yeah, we all felt included on the teams, but those 4th of July parties, we all felt included. And by the way, I didn't mention this, the food, oh my God. Food was unbelievable. I never ate I'd never seen a pig rotating. Sorry to all the vegetarians out there, but I've never seen that before. A pig rotating on a fire, and you eat it. You're like, oh my goodness. I've been missing this my whole life. Partly because I'm Jewish, and we just didn't eat a lot of pork in my house, and then partly because I've just never had this before. But just what it was, whatever you wanted. I mean, and you could bring your family, you could bring your friends. It was just, it's so gracious. And again, major impact on my life. I've said it too many times now, but. Any
Great.
final thoughts? I want to, yes, I'll keep this conversation going as long as we want, but I think I've made my point too many times now, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Well, Lee, I have to tell you, being Italian, I try also to do what you say, be nice and try to think about what that other person has gone through. But inside, I'm swearing Italian. I'm not gonna lie to you.
You don't have to lie. Yeah. Hopefully you work past that though. Right. Now I understand.
That's how I do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yes, especially as we're going forward, because gosh, let's hope we have a hockey season this year and the pandemic is behind us and we can get our kids together and we can watch them play on ice. Coaches, don't forget the influence that you have on these kids. It's so important. You can set them on fire, and you can also set them way back.
Right.
So just it's a great responsibility, but it's so important. And as Lee says, you might be the only one in their lives who's encouraging them to do something positive. And that, yes, if you can be successful at this, you can be successful at other things in your life. So, and parents, let's keep, there's so much negativity out there, and we've been through so much. It's been a horrible year. We've got another chance. Let's make the most of it, and let's support each other and lift each other up instead of putting each other down. And let's go forward with making this the best season yet. My window's closing. I only have a couple of years left in hockey, so I know I'm gonna make the best of it. And I'm hungry for it, and I can't wait for those early mornings and that horrible taste, the disgusting bitter coffee at
The
the
mud.
rink.
I call it the mud.
Can't wait to drink the mud again. I'm all excited about it.
Love it. Other than when I give the peace sign or any other sign, when I see those people that maybe are struggling, or you're wondering, like, well, I'm hoping either the person gets a ticket ahead of me,
Right.
or they get to their destination safely, because obviously there's some kind of an emergency. But I think I don't know, it's a great episode for me to start the week and kind of reflect on a lot of the things we're doing now, even preparing for next year, and preparing even the little things about, how are we going to build our team, and what kind of parents we're going to ask to do certain things to help us out, make the experience better for everyone. I will disagree a little bit, Lee, that I think the coach, like, I'm all in it for me. Like, I get so much joy when I see, I literally love, like, we did a lacrosse program this weekend, and we did a fun little superhero thing with the kids, at the kindergartners and second graders. And I found more joy in that, like, as just as a coach and somebody leading that charge, like, that gave me like so much energy the rest of the day. I'm like, I can't believe how much fun these kids had. Like, that was fun for me. And the other kids that helped me do that had fun. And so that's where I find my joy in this. And, that's the volunteer position, and given, whatever I don't even ever look at it as I'm giving up my time. Right. I'm looking at it as I'm giving my time to enjoy an experience, with kids that I wish, and sometimes in a lot of ways, I wish I had.
Right.
Like, I missed a lot of those things as a player. I'm like, wow, I wish my coach would have done that, or wow, this would have been cool to have this happen, or this is how, we can inspire more kids to play. So, I mean, I look at that every day as opportunity to really have fun, inspiring other kids, and in a lot of ways, other parents, because I've been finding more and more as my career has gone on, that I have more parents wanting to help me than fight me, because I think they want to find joy too. And I'm like, yeah, let's have fun together here. We're all here. We're stuck together for all these months in this little box. Let's make it fun. Why not?
Mike, to finish this episode, and I actually, you just made me realize this. Let me tell you the fundamental difference between why you're doing this great and correct in my mind, and perfect. I shouldn't say perfect. No one's perfect, but no. And why other coaches don't. Because this experience fills up your heart and not your brain, right? This fills up your heart and not your head. You don't have a big head. You never have, as long as I've known you. You got a strong personality. I get that. All three of us do. That's why we're on the air. Okay. But you have a huge heart, right? And like I said, you could disagree with me, but you just define selflessness without even knowing it. You know what I mean? And that's the difference, is that, it should fill your heart up with joy. And the thing is, for those of you who don't have kids, if you're listening to this somehow, the show is called Our Kids Play Hockey. One of the things that amazed me, and Mike and Christie, you'll know this already. This is something that I've come to learn in recent years. When you have your first kid, the love it's incredible. The amount of love you have for your child. It's there's no words to describe it. I'm not going to even try. And I remember when we were having our second child, the thought does cross your head of like, man, how am I going to do this with two? I love my son so much, have another one. And what you don't know, because you don't know your capacity, is that when you have the second kid, the love just doubles. It just doubles in size. You didn't think you could love anything as much as your first kid, But here you have another one and you love them just as much, right? I mean, when they're together and they're fighting, it's a pain in the ass, but you still love them, right? You know what I mean? And Mike, you embody that. Your heart just grows. And you just, you have your kids, you have thousands of kids. And here's the thing. And Mike, I know you've experienced this. I've experienced this a little bit too, is it's those phone calls I get 10 years later after I coached a kid 10 years later, and they're a dad and they have kids or they're a coach. And they say, I really appreciate what you did 10 years ago. Or like, do you remember this drill you made me do? The payoff doesn't come, if you want to even look at it like that, for years after it's done, but that's not why you do it. Right, Mike? I know you've had those calls. Right. I've had those calls from the college kids. I was only 23. They're calling me like, hey man, remember that drill you did? It's a reminder that you're doing it right. When you're not expecting the call, you don't really need the call. Right. And like you said, Mike, your heart is just filled up. It's your heart, not your head. There are coaches that it goes opposite, goes to their head. Right. But that's not you. It's never been you as long as I've known you. And, that's my compliment back to you. And don't ever disagree with me again on this show. I don't appreciate it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but you have the editing right, so you could cut that out. But
I could do whatever I would. I'm just kidding.
But I think it's great. I really appreciate you guys inspiring this the talk, and we always say, it's gonna be a short one.
20 minutes.
It's gonna go right through, and all of a sudden I'm sitting here going, well, we could keep we're gonna have we can come back on later and talk again. But I think it's I just hope what I've been experiencing too is, maybe people don't do it publicly through social media and Facebook and our kids play hockey, kind of this little community, right? That we hope we're helping inspire and be a part of. I'll get text messages after the episode all the time. Oh yeah, remember that? Or, oh, you were crazy back then. How did you even say that? Or, whatever, but I think at the end of the day, there's many, Christie said this earlier, there's many more positives than the negatives.
Wait.
And we have to embrace those positives, because I think that they're the things that keep us coming back every year.
Right.
Absolutely.
The negatives get the attention, but it's not necessarily reality.
Right. Well, it's on us to present the reality. And that's what we're trying to do with this episode. And being conscious, I'll also let the listeners know that, we think these are going to be quick episodes, and you stay with us the whole time. So we appreciate you as well. I think it's a good sign, guys, that every time we say, it'll be a quick one, it never is. It just shows you like this is a little community here too. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Obviously, check out ourkidsplayhockey.com. You can see the entire list of episodes. I think we're at 32 with this one. We're moving on up, and obviously you can hear our episodes wherever podcasts are heard. You can watch them on Facebook or YouTube, or once again, check out our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. For Christie Casciano Burns, Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you next time on Our Kids Play Hockey. Take care, everybody.